Jared Johnson, the Jared J. Joining me once again, as he has 814 or 6 times, Talmadge Rodger Varnado the third.
And it's actually okay to be back this time.
It's okay to be back.
I'm actually enjoying it this time.
For the first time in 7 minutes. So if you've been following the channel, you know that sometimes we talk about sports and sometimes we do top 10 lists. Well, guess what? That's what we're doing today.
Top 10 list.
Top 10 list. Talmadge and I are going to be discussing our top 10 favorite NBA players of all time. We're not necessarily saying that these guys belong on a top 10 greatest list,
Right.
although some of them might. These are just our personal favorites. If you've been following the channel, you know Talmadge is number one, and you know my number one. We definitely know each other's, but I don't know the rest of his list, and I don't know about you, Talmadge, but when I sat down to do this, I could do my top 3 without thinking about it. The rest, I had to really go, man, who are the rest of my top 10 favorites, and then ranking them in order and everything for something that should be fun and just easy. It took some time for me to put these together.
Yeah, I was the same way. It took a lot longer than I thought because I didn't really know. I'd never counted out 10, in other words.
That was my
thing. So it's like, okay,
yeah.
what are my 10? And then by the time I put the list out, okay, I'm just writing names down. They're not really in the order. So now I've got to decide which one I like over the...
You got to go back and start shuffling the pieces.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was harder than I thought.
Similar process. Well, I know that we have different number ones. It'll be interesting if we have any overlap on this, actually.
I'm sure there might be some, but we'll see.
There very well could be. So, Talmadge, kick us off. Give us your number 10.
Well, I will tell you, obviously, mine's going to have a heavy Houston Rocket flavor.
That seems reasonable.
But this person is not a Houston Rocket, or has not been, although there's rumors he might be coming up. But number 10 for me is Kevin Durant. Simply because I've never seen a player like him. And even when he went to Texas, before we saw him play, everybody was talking about how he's going to be one and done, how he's probably going to be the number 1 pick. I mean, we knew that coming into it. And then actually watching him play, you had never seen anything like that. I mean, with his height, and he holds the ball high when he shoots, you're not going to block his shot. His mid-range game is pure. He's tall enough, long enough, and legs are strong enough to be accurate from a three-point line as well. It just came down to would his body hold up. And while it's tailed off a little bit toward the end of his career, really, for the majority of his career, that wasn't a major issue.
He has held up. Though.
Yeah, so, for me, you could arguably say he is the best offensive player. I'm not saying point-wise, but I'm just saying from what he can do and how fluid he is and how everything looks so easy. You could say he might be the best offensive weapon in the history of the game, to be honest with you.
He belongs in the discussion.
But I'll
definitely.
put him at number 10 for sure.
Okay.
He's my favorite player.
Very cool. So my number 10 favorite of all time, Durant's nickname is the Slim Reaper, and for obvious reasons. I picked a guy that has almost an exact opposite build, and no, it's not Stanley Roberts, but my number 10 all-time favorite is Anthony Mason.
By the way, that doesn't surprise me.
Talmadge would not be shocked at all because he's probably heard me talk about Anthony Mason more than he's heard anybody ever talk about Anthony Mason. I was just always a big fan of this guy, and it's kind of, my reasons I will admit are kind of comical, but here was one of my biggest reasons. In a sport where most guys are more closely built to Reggie Miller, or at least Michael Jordan, who wasn't just a toothpick, but he was slim. Most guys are that size. Then you got this 6'7", 250 plus pounder that's just looks like an attack dog strolling down the floor with the Knicks, and he really helped set the tone for the way that Knick team played. You had him and Charles Oakley and E-Wing. At one time, Anthony Bonner was there, Charles Smith. They just played tough.
Anthony Bonner, wow.
Yeah, an Anthony Bonner reference today.
Wow.
But they played tough. They played aggressive, and Mason was one of the biggest reasons for that.
Well, and he had a 2 or 3 year stretch there where he was either all-star, borderline all-star type
Especially
player.
when he went to Charlotte.
Yeah.
And he kind of moved on.
And he was so versatile, too. That's what people don't realize.
Yes.
He was thick, like you say, and strong like a power player. But he didn't have finesse to his game. I'm not saying that, but he was small enough to where he could play that wing position also.
He really could, and a lot quicker than you think he had any business being.
Yeah.
Built like he was. I even remember one time he had the ball at the top of the key. I don't remember what the screen or the mismatch was, but Tim Hardaway, 6 foot 195, one of the quickest crossovers in history, was guarding Mason at the top of the key. Mason faked right, went left, crossed Tim Hardaway up, did a spin move, and took it all the way in for a layup. And I was like, how on earth did he even, how is he even capable of doing that? And he wasn't a triple-double machine, but it wasn't a shock if he got one either. Because he was a good passer, a good rebounder.
There goes that versatility I was talking
solid
about.
all around.
When I think him, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
A versatile. You could play him really anywhere on the front line, and I know they didn't have small ball fives at that time.
Right.
But he was kind of doing that. In
today's game, and then back then even he kind of was, And he wasn't, you wouldn't want him to be your starting point guard, but the story I just told, he can handle the ball out on the floor, and he can set people up and facilitate. So, he's my number 10. Talmadge, who's your number 9?
My number 9 is the controversial, but you can't deny his talent, James Harden. Especially...
Who did play for the Houston Rockets.
He did. Especially the years where he won the MVP, or the year he won the MVP, and the year or two before and the year or two after. That little 5-year, had an 8-year run in Houston, but that 3 or 4 year run in Houston when they were trying to battle with Golden State every year, I know it's hard not to count as playoff flameouts because that's part of the resume. But if you strictly go by the regular season, again, I know I said this was Kevin Durant, but you could make the argument because of how he could score. Not saying he's the best scorer, but saying he knew more ways to score than most. He could drive you to the basket and get fouled. He could drive you to the basket and get a continuation. He could pull up and hit the mid-range. He created the step back, or at least
he's jump balance and step back and shoot the three.
He created the side step. Now people step to the side and shoot it. So all the different ways he could score, you can't argue.
No.
And he wasn't a great defender. He's not a great defender, but he will get in passing lanes. He will get deflections. He will get steals. So, and what he's doing with the Clippers, by the way, I think is going really unnoticed. He's had I don't say great, but I'll say very good year with the Clippers this year, especially without a Paul George and without Kawhi for most of the year. He kept that team afloat, him and Powell, because Powell gets some credit too. And their centers really had a great year, but it starts with James even now. So he's my number 9.
And I'll say real quick, during that stretch you're talking about, I remember telling some guys that the run he's in right now, I said, go back and look in history. Even Michael Jordan, put him in the conversation. The stretch that James Harden's on right now, the scoring tear he's on, is comparable with anybody outside of Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
And some people are like, he's not Jordan. I said, calm down.
Right. We're not saying that. We're not saying
this
that.
4 or 5 year stretch he's in, go back and look at his numbers. Compare him with anybody. He's got comparable stats right now as far as the way he's putting up points and the triple doubles. He was averaging 8 rebounds, 8 assists some of those years too.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. The year that Westbrook won it and it was averaging a triple-double, really and truly, he won that because he had 80 more rebounds than James Harden. That's literally it.
It wasn't,
Because the mere fact that was back and forth, think about it. Somebody's averaging a triple-double, and they're talking about
the landslide winner for MVP.
Now we're seeing that again this year with Jokic, but normally you don't see that.
There's not usually much of a discussion outside. Yeah.
And there was a vehement one. I mean, it wasn't just like a passing conversation.
No, some people flat out said Harden still should have won.
Yeah.
And some people will still say that. Well, my number 9, speaking of a guy that could get some triple doubles, Jason Kidd.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's one of the greatest point guards of all time.
He is. Don't think about it.
Without a doubt, I'd say he is. And I love the fact that he could dominate a game without ever scoring a point.
Yeah.
Not that he wouldn't score. He averaged like 12 points a game for his career. It didn't matter if he ever scored. At the end of the game, he might have 9 assists and make 3 or 4 other highlight passes where guys just missed a shot. And he was going to get you probably 7 to 12 rebounds and maybe 2 to 3 steals. And he was going to shut down some fast breaks by deflecting the ball. He could literally impact the game in so many different ways. And
I still think he's underrated.
I do too.
People know he's a Hall of Famer. They know he's great. Don't get me wrong. But to your point, because he didn't have the big point totals all the time, I think that hinders the way people think about him. But if you're just talking about winning and running a team and everything a point guard's supposed to do, tangibly and intangibly, there's not many better.
No, there's really
in the history
not.
Of the sport.
And when he was in his prime, baseline to baseline, probably the quickest guy in the league, probably the quickest, fastest guy in the league when he was in his prime. And I also love the way he adapted his game. When he started slowing down, losing that quickness, he became a legitimately pretty good three-point shooter.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, he's my number 9. I just always loved watching the guy play. Talmadge, who's your number 8?
Dirk Nowitzki is my number 8, which is hard for me because I can't stand the Mavericks.
I was about to say, a rocket. I almost spewed my Dr. Pepper and ruined my laptop there.
I can't stand him, but I will say this.
Wait, you said you can't stand him, but he's one of your favorite players. You can't stand the Mavericks.
Well, I can't stand the Mavericks.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't stand that I'm picking him because he's a Maverick.
That's a little shocking.
But what I will say about him is he is the only player on a team that I don't like that I just had to accept and I had to admire. I mean, how can you not admire what it is? Especially people forget when he first came in the league, people were saying that the Mavericks blew that peg.
Oh, people were asking, why this guy? Why'd you draft him?
And people are thinking Robert Tractor Trailer, who they traded to get him, was going to be better than he was. And I'll be honest, I can't remember what I thought. I'd love to sit there and say I didn't think that, but I can't remember.
So I wasn't sure what to think. I remember it going, well, I don't know this other guy.
But what he's done and how he conducts himself off the court too. You never heard a bad thing about him. He just seems like a nice guy. Stayed with the same franchise. Again, I'm not saying that's a plus or minus because you have no control over that, but just coincidentally, that does add to the lore because very few players get to stay with the same team. So and you see these statues being put out in front of stadiums of players, and I don't want to berate somebody for earning that or getting that.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes we're just passing those out now. I'll say this.
Participation statues?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say that because all of them are great players, but I'll say this. Dirk is one of the ones who, yes, there's no argument. He is that franchise.
He's the Mavericks.
Yay. And so for those reasons, and again, the way he conducted himself and the way his game progressed, it didn't start out great. I mean, for all those reasons, I couldn't help but put him on my list.
That's a good point, and you're talking about the kind of person he is. Do you think he seems like the type of person that would take time out of his day to offer a saltine cracker to a pelican? If he saw a pelican that looked hungry, you think he'd take time?
So who's next on your list?
Oh, so my number 8 is a guy that's the same height as I am, Earl Boykins. Not a lot of people...
You know Boykins is taller than you.
He's listed as 5'5". I've never met him. Almost everybody, it's safe to assume that everybody's taller than I am. But he's listed as 5'5", which is what I'm listed as on my driver's license. And what
this man was talking about a cracker guy.
Yeah, handing a saltine.
I'm still on that.
A pelican or a pigeon. I mean, Dirk basically seems like the type of person that might do that, though, right?
Wrong. A cracker.
So Earl Boykins is my number 8.
Graham crackers for him?
I think Earl Boykins would be the type of person that would accept graham crackers or Teddy Grahams, even if he didn't like them or wasn't in the mood for them.
Very
He just didn't want to be mean to somebody for offering them to him. Oh, you bought me some Teddy Grahams. Thank you so much. And sit there and eat them even though he didn't care.
Let's hope people are still watching.
Hello, Earl Boykins. The fact that he's my height, played in the league.
Is that one of your reasons? Because he's your height?
Yeah, because I know how hard it is just to reach the top shelf at Walmart at my height. This guy played in the NBA. And was second in the Sixth Man of the Year voting one year. He had some years coming off the bench where he averaged 14, 15 points a game. He was never a superstar, but could legitimately rip the three. He had the quickness. He had, he wasn't a guy that got you a lot of assists, so he wasn't a great pure point guard. But he was a guy that could come in and make a difference and make some nice plays. And he had more success actually playing in Italy. The competition was different, so he put up bigger numbers. And his senior year of college for Eastern Michigan, he averaged 25.5 points per game, second in the nation in scoring, second only to Wally Zerbiak.
Makes sense.
So, coming out of college, I was already a fan of this guy.
Well, and keep in mind, it's our list. It's not. We're not saying these are the best players of all time.
Precisely.
We're saying these are our favorite.
He's one of my favorites, and this is why. Yeah. So, Talmadge, who's your number 7 favorite?
Let me count up here. Oh, James Harden.
Did we already talk? Oh, no, we didn't already talk about him. Dirk was the last one you talked about.
I was confused too. Like, did I already say James? Because we filmed several episodes in one day.
James Harden.
But I just did Dirk.
Okay, so James Harden's next on your list.
I did say James.
Because you talked about what he's doing with the Clippers this year.
Yeah, I did.
Forgive us. Talmadge just reading his list backwards.
No, I put him down twice on the list.
Oh,
so I really
you
like
James
him.
Harden so much he's on your list twice.
But I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
And I'll replace James with that.
We'll slide this guy in.
Gosh, I was like, I know I've said James, but we filmed so many in one day, man.
And we talk off camera so much. Yeah.
But I'm gonna go with somebody who should have been on the list. One of my favorite players of all time is Chris Webber. And I can't believe I didn't put him on my list. Loved his game. Loved his versatility.
Yeah.
As great as he was, then I think he'd be even better in today's game because you're just allowed to do more. I
think he would too.
And to me, he's the definition of positionless basketball because he had a skill set that he could do other things. I mean, he could lead the break. He could finish the break.
Oh,
he could shoot from there. I won't call him a three-point shooter, but he had an outside shot.
He could step out on the
and
floor,
I guarantee if he played today, he probably would expand that range to be a three-point shooter. He could handle a basketball for a big guy.
Very good passer for that size.
He could kill you in the post. I mean, there really was no weakness to his game. And one thing people don't realize about Chris is this. Everywhere he went, they didn't win ultimately, but until he went to Detroit, which is by that time he was just hanging on. But really, every team he went to before he got there they were garbage. He gets there, they're respectable, they're a playoff team. He leaves, they're garbage again.
That's true. Golden State,
every single.
Washington, Sacramento, the exact same formula. That's a very strong point.
And nobody really realizes that, and I think it should be higher on the greatest players of all time for that reason. Because if it's about winning and skill set,
he elevated the franchise.
There's not a lot that were
went.
Better.
And he was the obvious factor. It's not like 2 or 3 new guys came to these places. No, you just added Chris Webber, and you're that much better.
And they had other good players around him, but he made them better.
But without him, the team wasn't the same.
So my mistake putting James twice.
That's how much you like James Harden.
Yeah, I love him 2 times down, but we're going to replace him with Christopher Webber.
Okay, Christopher. My number 7 of all time is Jason Kidd. I'm joking. I'm kidding. My number 7 is...
I'll actually laugh at that one.
Okay, that one's okay. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues is my number 7. For really most of the same reasons that I mentioned with Earl Boykins. Tyrone's actually shorter than I am. 5'3", played in the NBA. Hardly anybody else. Think about this. He was a rookie in the mid-'80s. There's still never been a shorter player in the league history. And he actually was a starting point guard for Charlotte on some playoff teams and averaged a double-double at least once. I just always was a huge fan of him. His lockdown defense. We talked in a previous episode. His lockdown man-to-man defense and full court pressure defense. He's one of the best of all time.
I was going to say that again. I forgot we talked about it before, but I was going to say exactly that. Not only was he a great defender, it's more amazing because at his size, he was a great defender.
Yes.
Because you would think all people would do is shoot over him. And don't get me wrong, they tried to, and they did.
Yeah,
but
if you can get your shot off, you can shoot
but the
over
ball pressure was so much, and it was full court ball pressure.
Yes, and didn't get tired.
The biggest sign you can tell somebody's a good defender, especially at the pro level, is if somebody bringing the ball up court turns their back to you. Because that's what they teach you not to do. But that's the reflex thing that bad basketball players do when they feel pressure. They turn their back. Pro athletes are turning their back, bringing the ball up the court to get away from this pressure. They had to back their way
down the court because they couldn't get it up the floor.
And you're not supposed to do that.
No, especially if you're the point guard. You're the best ball handler on the team. At 5'3", he should have been a hilarious liability on defense.
Yes.
Instead, he altered the way that some of the best ball handlers had to bring the ball up the court. So, yeah. He's my number 7 favorite. Talmadge, other than James Harden, who's your number 6 favorite?
Let's make sure I didn't say this name again already. That's so embarrassing. Tracy McGrady.
Another Houston Rocket.
At
least for part of his career.
Very fluid player. very athletic player, and people forget this. I'm not saying he's Kobe. Please don't write in the comments. But there was a time when there was that argument when they were both playing. Who's better, Kobe or Tracy?
There was a time where it was a legitimate question.
And so that tells you how good Tracy was. Tracy was just derailed by injury. The knees and the back first, and later on the knees. It just derailed him a little bit. But boy, when he was at his best,
he was a scoring machine.
He was on the trajectory to be a top 15 player all time. But the injury just kind of slowed him down.
And he could hit the three. He wasn't Steph Curry level, but he could hit the three. He could take you off the dribble.
What was it? 13 points in how many seconds?
Like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Yeah. So, I mean, he was deadly.
Yeah, so he definitely. It's still one of my favorite players to this day.
And I wonder if you would have been a fan had he never gone to the Rockets. I'm kidding. I think you still would.
I would have, but you know what? He may not have been on my list because I wouldn't have seen him play as much. When you see somebody play, because I've had League Pass for years, when you see somebody play every single game, you have a different appreciation.
Yeah. That's true. Well, my number 6, and here is our first overlap. Chris Webber is my number 6 all-time favorite. From the time he was a freshman at Michigan, I just loved watching the guy play.
But does it count as an overlap since he was a replacement for me?
There's the asterisk involved.
Okay. All right.
But he should have been on your list because James Harden was there twice.
Yeah, he should have been. I'll say it again. That's pretty embarrassing. Can we edit this and do this all?
We maybe could, but I don't think we will. Weber, for all the reasons Talmadge mentioned, he could take over a game. I used to say this about him, especially in his younger age. If he has the ball anywhere around the rim, somebody's about to be dunked on. Yeah. And I don't care who's down there. He was explosive, powerful, great rebounder, great court vision for
Passer
that size.
Too,
he could pass on the fast break. That Sacramento team, everybody talks about Jason Williams, ball handling, and we should, but don't forget, without Chris Webber, some of that they might not have been doing.
Well, and keep in mind, they were even better when Williams left.
Yeah,
when Bibby became the point guard.
But they still kept playing like that because Webber could come down the floor behind the back, going full speed, and just find people and facilitate. I mean, you weren't going to put him as your point guard necessarily, but he could rip a rebound down on a fast break, and you didn't have to pass it off. He could just. And
like I said, in today's game, you might put him at point. I'm slightly exaggerating, but it's positionless now. I mean,
he could do So I just always was a huge fan of the guy. It was hard when he went to Philadelphia and Detroit later in his career. And he started slowing down. It's always hard to watch guys that you're a fan of when they kind of get to that point. But great player. Always been a big fan. Now we've reached the top 5, Talmadge. Who's your number 5?
Another Houston Rocket, at least briefly for a few years, Mr. Clyde Drexler. A lot of that has to do, though, with his college career, too, I'm admitting.
Slamma-jamma.
Because I loved him in college, and so it's hard to forget that. Don't get me wrong, he was great in Portland. I'm not saying he wasn't. Oh, yeah. He was great in Portland.
Don't forget how much he looks like Felix the Cat.
I have forgotten that, and I'm going to forget it tomorrow too. So
until I remind you.
Yeah. Let's hope you don't. But Clyde, the athleticism, rebounder, passer, could play the passing lanes. Like we said before, best player in the world I've ever seen that dribbles while looking at the ball. Because he did.
Never looked up and he could somehow steal.
But he got away with it, though. You couldn't take it from him.
You still couldn't steal it from him unless you're maybe Muggsy.
And people don't know this. They don't talk about this about him. Nobody talks about how pound for pound, how strong he was.
Yeah.
He's one of the strongest players in the league physically. And we look at the athleticism, and we see him gliding through the air, and that's what we think of. But if you talk to players that played against him, the two things they'll say. Well, like we just talked about, he dribbles while looking at the ball. Pound for pound, he's as strong as any player in the league. And the one negative, but it's a negative kind of, but he was still a great player, so he overcame it. That tells you how great he was. He was going to go right. He was going to go right hard, but he still got there.
He still scored when he wanted to.
He still got there.
That's all very good points. And my number 5 is maybe not pound for pound the strongest guy ever. It's Stephen Curry. He might not be,
I mean, I don't know basketball, so I have no idea. I don't know.
The 3-point shooting, and when he was at Davidson, I didn't know what kind of NBA career he was going to have.
I didn't either.
But I remember watching him then and just being like, my gosh, this boy that looks like he's 15 years old is out there destroying everybody.
Assassin
just
on them people.
Drilling the three anytime he felt like it. And again, he could have been, I knew they showed Del Curry in the crowd. So I was like, oh, that's Del Curry. So he could have been the answer to a trivia question. In his first few years in the league, he had so many ankle injuries.
Yeah.
You didn't really know. He didn't necessarily scream eventual back-to-back MVP winner when he had all his ankle injuries. And the way that he keeps playing now, and I mean, we could talk all day about revolutionizing the game with his three-point shooting. This guy will pull up from 50 feet away when the shot clock's not winding down. If he misses, you don't even care because you know he might hit the next one.
Yeah.
He's literally that deadly, and he can get his shot away in so many different ways. A lot of great three-point shooters are only great coming off screens and catching and shooting, and there's still a lot to be said for that. Curry can do that, but he can do it off the dribble. He can take you off the dribble and then do the step back. He can stop on the fast break. He can hit them in so many different ways.
Well, and I'll say this, and nobody, people aren't going to like it. Please listen to what I'm saying. Listen to all of what I'm saying, not just part of it. If they somehow, I don't think they will, but if Golden State somehow wins another title and he gets to 5, I'm not saying he's better than LeBron, but you could begin to make the argument he was the best player of his era, not LeBron, and I'll tell you why. He'll have more titles, and keep in mind, Steph won the MVP unanimously. That means he won the MVP while LeBron was playing, and LeBron didn't get a vote.
Yeah.
So you could begin to make the argument that actually, kind of like the Kobe, Tim Duncan. Most people think Kobe was the dominant player of the era, but if you really look at it, you could make the case it was Tim Duncan. A lot of people don't do it, but if you look at the facts, you could actually make the case that no, Timmy was the dominant player of his era. So they get another title, and you could make that claim.
Yeah, there may even be some people that would argue it as is. Yeah. I don't know. That they're very different type players, so it's hard to say, but I definitely get your reasoning there. All right, Talmadge, who's your number 4?
Let's make sure I'm not repeating myself. Number 4 is my first favorite player of all time of any sport. Well, he might have been my second. I can't remember if Pete Rose came first or not.
I was going to say, I know it's not Pete Rose.
But in basketball, I know for sure, from the San Antonio Spurs, the Iceman, George Gervin. I know what you're going to say, yeah. I had just started watching basketball, so I didn't have a lot to compare it to. But I had just never seen anything like it. Again, I hadn't seen much because I just started watching.
Right.
But the little I had seen, he was just different than everybody else. He was, to me, the first, quote-unquote, big guard.
Yeah.
He played
skinny,
big
but
and
6'7".
physical. Yeah, he was
just tower over those
wiry, stronger than people thought, and that finger roll that he was known for. Plus, I was a Texas boy anyway, so I saw a lot of San Antonio Spurs games. Not as many as you would see nowadays because there was no league pass.
True.
But I could catch a game here or there when you were only getting one game a week, back when TV really mattered. So for those reasons. And then for those who don't know, look up his poster online.
Oh, yeah.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Iconic. That's all I'm going to say.
And us growing up in a reasonably similar era, even though we didn't know each other, I lived in Kentucky. I know exactly the poster you're talking about. It was something that everybody knew. Every basketball kid knew.
Yeah.
Well, my number 4 favorite played in the same era as George Gervin. Okay. Pistol Pete Maravich.
I thought of him. I did think of him.
He is a guy that, of the guys I've never seen play, he is obviously one of my favorites. Just his ball handling was so far ahead of his time. There's no telling how many assists he could have gotten if his teammates were ready for it.
Yeah.
Some of the guys couldn't catch up to the things he was doing. He was just so advanced.
And keep in mind, these are people that knew he passed like that. So usually you adjust to it.
Yeah.
Even when they adjusted, some of them passes you couldn't adjust to. Yeah.
He just saw the game and on a different level, I think. And his shooting was just deadly. I just talked about Curry. If Maravich would have had a three-point line, we might be saying he's the greatest three-point shooter of all time. We've talked before, but I'll say it again. If he had a three-point line, there's no telling what his career scoring average could have been. He averaged over 40 a game 3 straight years in college. Dale Brown went back and looked at the tape and said if the shots he hit would have counted for threes, he would have averaged 57 a game for his career.
I believe it.
And
I mean, people
it's
might
not
be
even a
laughing,
doubt.
but I believe
No,
it.
I
I
don't doubt
completely
it at
believe
all. And in his NBA career, he averaged 24 points a game. A lot of people don't talk him in as high a regard because the longevity wasn't as strong, and he played for a lot of losing
A lot of bad
teams. But his scoring, 24 a game, if he would have had a three-point line, he might be I'd say almost for sure the highest per game scorer in history.
A comparable player to him, to me, in a different sport, you know, somebody who was really good but played on some bad teams, was Archie Manning.
That's actually a very good comparison.
And they both played in New Orleans, by the way.
I was about to say, ironically enough, the same city. But no, that's a very good point. So yeah, Pete Maravich, definitely my number 4. All right, Talmadge, the plane is beginning to descend. Who's your number 3?
I couldn't have a favorite player list without adding the person who really saved the league. I know a lot of people started with Bird and Magic, which is true, and then Jordan carried it to the next level. But the one who really got it in position to where those guys could carry it was Dr. J.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't make a list without
for there to be a league to save.
Yeah.
It had to come. It wouldn't have come without him.
And if you count his ABA numbers, they're even more phenomenal.
Yeah.
But just, again, there were others before him that people don't really talk about. There was Connie Hawkins, and there were a few, but he was the first one to where you came to watch him dunk.
Yeah.
He was the attraction, no matter what their record was, who they were playing, who your favorite team was. Even as a child, you know, back then, like we talked about before, you had maybe a doubleheader on Sunday.
Yeah.
Wasn't no cable, wasn't no streaming, wasn't a league pass.
If you didn't catch a ball was on, you weren't going to see it.
You were seeing 2 games a week if you were lucky.
Yeah.
And to tell you how popular he was, Philadelphia was on every week. I mean, not literally, but you get my point. The majority of the weeks, you're going to see Philadelphia, you're going to see the Lakers, you're going to see Boston. Maybe San Antonio would sneak in there.
Usually those
Maybe
teams,
the Knicks.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And so basically, he's the best player that was seen the most. And I really have problems with, I see why, because so many players have come on since then. And maybe his numbers don't quite stack up. But just because of what he meant to the league and how he saved the league, to me, he's got a permanent spot in my top 15. I don't care who comes along. Because without him, there is nobody else.
Yeah. We're not talking about the guys of today without Julius Erving. So that's a good point. So my number 3 all-time player was just a little before the era of Julius Erving. If you've been following the channel, you've heard me talk about how much I like this guy. Yeah. It is Elgin Baylor.
I knew who you were going to say when you said that.
You knew his name was about to come up. I'm getting to my top 3. Yeah, just a phenomenal all-around player. You look at his points and rebounds combined, only Wilt Chamberlain was more impressive in both of those categories. Elgin he could just dominate. 6'5", averaged 13.5 rebounds a game for his career, and 27.4 points without a three-point line. Think about it this way. He was literally a Michael Jordan level scorer.
Yes.
I understand he's almost 3 points per game less, but Elgin never had a three-point line. Right. So I'm going to say he was a Michael Jordan level scorer and a Dennis Rodman, Ben Wallace level rebounder. Yeah. At 6'5". And can't say that about anybody else.
And I've said this a few times, and people are going to say you say it about everybody, but if it's true, it's true. If we were making a list of the most underrated players of all time, if he's not number 1, he's pretty doggone close. Because we've talked about this before on this on your channel. I'd heard the name. I mean, I knew who he was. I knew he was a great. I knew he was the GM of the Clippers. I mean, I knew all that. But when he passed, they were talking about his numbers, and I was like, that's got to be a mistake. It's got to be, man. But some of those years, I mean, averaging 17 rebounds a game with 25 points. I mean, and I'm just.
No, he had one year where he averaged, and these might be a little off, but there's back-to-back years where he averaged. One year he averaged 38.3 points and 18.6 rebounds. The next year was like 35 points and 19.8 rebounds.
If you would have told me that, I'm thinking you're quoting Wilt's numbers. Literally, I would think it was
Outside of
Wilt.
Wilt Chamberlain, it's unheard of.
Yeah, so I could have found a place for him on my list too. Yeah. And largely because I feel like he's been so neglected. It's almost like I feel bad making a list and not including him. No, seriously. And I know I keep saying it, but I've probably never been more wild when I saw somebody's numbers.
Yeah.
When you compare it to what my thought was. Yes.
And I'll say this, and then we can move on to your number 2. You probably remember this. Back years ago when we worked together, I told you one day that I considered him one of the absolute greatest players of all time.
I argued it.
You said, Jared, he was good, but he wasn't that good.
Right.
I said, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I started quoting his numbers, and you in that moment was like, I don't seem right.
That can't be.
I said, look it up. I'm not making this up. And so, yeah, that was one of, I remember you going, Jared, he was good, but he wasn't that good. And I was like, yes, he actually was.
But you wonder how he doesn't get, granted, he didn't, well, he won, they won a title the year he retired. Yeah. He played retired. Like 6 or 7 games that year, so he never played.
The championship, yeah.
And so maybe that's why, but other than that, why is he not? I mean,
he also never won a league MVP, but also he was in the same era with Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Oscar Robertson.
I guess what I'm saying is when you name the best players of all time, he should be on that list. I'm talking.
I concur.
He should be top 10, top 15 discussion.
Oh yeah,
and he's not.
Every time I tell somebody I consider him a top 10, I get all this. No, he's not. No, he's not. I'm like. I'm kind of like you. Like, how do we not?
Just don't understand, especially with the franchise he played for. There's just no.
It's not like he played for a team that nobody ever heard. So yeah.
One of our bigger mysteries. I don't get it, but I'm glad he's on your list, and he could have easily found his place on mine, except for James Harden.
Except for the fact that James Harden took up 2 spots, and then there's Chris Webber. All right, Talmadge, who's your number 2 all-time favorite?
My number 2 is, of course, a Rocket.
Vernon Maxwell.
I considered him because he's one of my favorite players. He is one of my favorite players, but I didn't quite put him on the list because I didn't want to get totally laughed off the channel. But I had to go with Moses Malone.
Oh, yeah.
The stories you hear about him are phenomenal. There used to be I think the guy's name was Sonny Vaccaro, who ran a basketball camp years ago, and he ran it for years. All the top draft picks would go there before the draft. And they asked him once, has there ever been anybody who was too good for your camp? Because it's considered the best camp in the country by far. And he was like, just one. Moses Malone. He dominated everybody there. I sent him home. I was like, we can't teach you anything.
Didn't you say after like the first day, he said there's no need for you to come back?
Don't even worry about it. There's nothing we can show you.
Man.
Also the fact that Hakeem Olajuwon, who's coming up later, and since I'm at number 2, I guess but
it's not much later.
But he credits Moses Malone for turning him into the player that he was, because they used to play at Fondue Rec Center in Houston when Hakeem was at college, and Moses was like, "Kid, you got some talent, but you're too weak. You take plays off," and Moses beat him up. I mean, beat him up, and Hakeem often says, finally. He was on the baseline before the dream shake, but the preamble to the dream shake. He took a quick step on the baseline and took 2 hands and dunked over Moses, and Moses turned to him and said, "You're ready."
Man, that's a heck of a story.
And that was the end of it. So, Moses. And then also keep in mind, Moses won MVP 3 times.
He did.
People don't realize that. He won it 3 times.
He was a beast back in his day.
And by the way, in 1981, the Houston Rockets were 40-42. 2 games under 500, 6th seed in the West. They got all the way to the finals against Boston. How you think they got there? Moses Malone put him on his back and said, "I'll take you," and he did.
Yeah.
And so, the day he was traded to Philly, even though I knew it was coming, I'm not going to say I cried, but I was 12, so figure it out. I probably cried. So love Moses Malone. And here's another one. Again, I've said this a bunch. Y'all are going to kill me. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
I don't think he does either. I think over time, people have forgotten how great he really was.
I think they have, because he wasn't the most athletic. He didn't have the best hands. In fact, Tom Nasalki, he used to be a coach in the league. He coached the Rockets for a while and did their color commentary after he coached. He often said, if Moses Malone had the hands of Hakeem Olajuwon, he'd been the best center of all time. Because he didn't have the footwork, he didn't have the speed, he just outworked you.
He didn't have much
of a stronger than you.
Either. He didn't do a lot of jump shots. It was just
nothing. And so he just did it because I'll put it this way, he was a bigger man than everybody else.
And he played.
Period.
Very good. And here's an interesting part. My number 2 favorite is a guy.
Then I know who it is.
You already know who my
I know
number
who
2
it
favorite is. But in his early days, Moses helped turn his career around. Charles Barkley. They were when Charles was a rookie at Philadelphia. I've heard him say it many times. Moses said, "You're too fat and you're too out of shape. You need to get in shape. You need to lose about 50 pounds." And that turned Charles's career around. And I even remember Charles saying when he was at Auburn, he said, "I wasn't a dominant scorer. He averaged like 14 points a game, but he led the SEC in rebounding 3 years in a row." And I think it was Auburn's head coach was telling him, talking about his NBA career.
Sonny Smith.
And Barkley was like, I didn't think I was NBA material, really. And Sonny Smith talked about my rebounding. And he said, here's how ignorant I was. In my mind, I was like, Coach, any knucklehead can go out there and get 10 rebounds per game. It's not that hard. Because it wasn't that hard for Charles. Yeah. And then he said he showed me the newspaper one day with the NBA stats. And it was like, there's 3 guys in the league doing this. Mm-hmm. What do you mean anybody? Obviously, not just anybody can do it. So that's what kind of got Charles in the league was his rebounding. And listed as 6'6", admits to being 6'4", and played the power forward position and dominated. Yeah. He consistently played against guys that towered over him that he had no business competing against and flat out outplayed them. So, he's my number 2 favorite.
If I didn't already know your number 1 from knowing you, I would have thought Barkley was your number 1. I know that's how highly you regard him. And I'll say this, when he played at Auburn, I was actually living in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
During that time frame. That. Yeah, so I saw him playing off a lot. I even went to a couple of games. He was just phenomenal in college. Even then I didn't know he'd be that good in the pros.
Yeah.
I knew he'd be good, but he took it to another level in the pros, but largely a lot because of people like Moses Malone and Julius too. Julius attacked him a little differently, like how to conduct himself off the court and those kind of things. But Moses told him what he needed to do, and to Charles's credit, he did it.
He did, instead of getting offended and becoming a worse out of shape.
And player. I love him because he gives Moses credit for that. To this day.
Well, we both know each other's number 1s, but we're still going to go ahead and say Talmadge, go ahead and talk about your favorite player of all time.
You mean talk about Akeem Olajuwon? Well, what can I say that I haven't already said? Again, I know people are going to say Shaq. Some will say Wilt. You could obviously Kareem, and none of you be wrong. I'm not saying some people are even saying Jokic now. I'm not saying any of those are wrong.
He's climbing the ranks.
But in my eyes, just for the team I would want, to me, Akeem's the best center of all time. Now, I know statistically he's not. And again, if you say those other names, I'm not going to argue because your argument's going to be stronger than mine, probably. But I will say this, because of the way he played, no one's played the position like him.
That is very true.
I would say the closest that I've seen glimpses of, athletically, David Robinson was probably a slightly better athlete. Slightly better.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that in today's game, a healthy Embiid probably plays the post as close to anybody I've seen Akeem do. Akeem did it better. I don't care what Embiid says.
But as close.
But he's the only one I've seen that, as close to. But when you look at, especially when he matured, especially those championship years, those beginning years, he was wild. He wasn't disciplined. He was getting by on athleticism only.
Yeah.
He had a temper, got thrown out of a lot of games. But I'm talking about when he settled in. Those 3 or 4 years when he was, the year before he won the MVP, when Charles won it, you could have said Dream won it that year.
He was right up there.
The year Dream won it, and actually the year David beat him, he actually had better numbers than when he won it. So for those 3 years.
That 3-year stretch.
I'll take his 3 years. Again, I know Shaq will. But I'll take his 3 years and put them against anybody again. And also because visually how it looked. Because Shaq dominated people, but you would expect that.
Well, yeah.
But to see the things that, Weber said it best. Weber was he was the first one I saw that would face you up and do a crossover.
Yeah.
And you don't see people doing that.
And Akeem had a good enough jump shot that he could face you up from 20 feet away. And you didn't know you were so scared, what's he going to do?
You didn't know
If I back off, he'll rip it in my face.
Yeah.
If I go at him, he'll really make me look stupid.
And I submit to you with him as well. I'm not going to say he would have been a great three-point shooter. But had they been more allowed, like in today's game, to do that, he had the touch.
He would have been
he had the
reliable three-point shooter, I
think.
think.
If Embiid could do it, I'm convinced.
Oh, yeah, no, Hakeem
could do it too.
And I'll say, too, you talked about that 3-year stretch, and he was already good. To me, watching him at that time, he went from being a good player to being darn near untouchable. Like, he elevated his game to that level to where,
and the final,
there was Robinson and Barkley, and there's these other guys, but, man, there was something about Hakeem during that era where you just couldn't stop him.
And on the 2 years they won the championship, look who they went through.
Yeah.
Look who they went through. He went through Malone and Stockton twice. He went through Barkley and KJ twice. He went through Robinson and Rodman. He went through Ewing. He went through Shaq and Penny.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Those guys could,
He went through all of them.
And Shaquille was like, man, Hakeem's the only guy that just psychologically messed with me and took me off my game. Like, I would come down and elbow him, and he would just say, nice bogey, fella. Next time use a drop step. It's like I couldn't intimidate him. I was bigger. Everybody else in the league was scared to come up on me. This guy was just playing like I couldn't hurt him. I couldn't back him down. He would just tell me good job, and then he would coach me on what I should do next, and then come down and score me again.
Weber said the same thing. Weber's like, he would actually, like, when I first saw him, he looked at them like, this guy ain't that big. And then I saw what he did, and he'd be like giving me pointers. Next time, do this.
Yeah, in the midst of a game where I'm trying to beat you, I'm still going to coach you to help make you better somehow. Yeah, just a great all-time center for sure. And if you've been watching the channel, you know my number one favorite player.
Yeah.
Irvin Magic Johnson. I could talk probably till dark about him. I won't do that, at least not with the camera rolling. But yeah, the numbers I'm not even going to go into. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
The way he played the game. He actually has said he got a lot of his ball handling and passing moves from another one of my favorites, Pete Maravich.
Yeah, I've heard that also.
Magic flat out said, I got a lot of my moves from Pistol Pete. But the way that Magic can play any position, and I'll just say this one small thing about his greatness. As a rookie, after helping Michigan State win a national title, he first of all, he won a state championship in high school as a senior. 2 years later, wins Final Four MVP, leads Michigan State. The very next year, he helps the Lakers win a championship. Yep. They were playing a very good Philadelphia team.
Yes.
Kareem gets injured. Magic, as a 20-year-old rookie, has the audacity to say, start me at center because I can do it. And then he backs it up with the skill level, goes out there, starts at center as a 20-year-old rookie with the season on the line in Game 6 of the finals, scores 42 points, grabs 15 rebounds, dishes out 7 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals, wins Finals MVP, still to this day the youngest player ever to win Finals MVP. I could go on and on about some of the other stuff, but that solidifies right there.
Well, like we talked about, I said Dr. J got it started.
Yeah.
But Bird and Magic, they kept this league afloat. I mean, there just wouldn't be a league.
Yeah, you're right.
And for that alone, plus all the other things you mentioned, it just worked out perfectly. And sometimes being a favorite player, a great player, obviously you got to have talent, but also things have to break your way. There has to be some luck. But he came in the league at the right time, the right franchise. Because I guarantee you, if he goes to the Milwaukee Bucks, he might have been a great player.
Playing that same level.
I'm not sure it would have had. Yeah,
no, it wouldn't have.
A lot of things had to fall right. But I knew when you suggested this topic, it was either going to be Charles or him. I knew it was going to be one of those two. And I knew Mason would be on your list too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I did know Mason.
That was a surprise. I don't know if you predicted he's going to at least be number 10. You knew Anthony Mason would be on
I knew he'd be in there.
It's almost like we've talked about basketball a few times, 814 or 72 times
Almost
before.
like that, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as we did. If you did like it, please show that by clicking the like button. If you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. It really will help enable me to continue to bring you more of this type of content, as well as many other types. And tell us in the comments, who are your top 10 favorites of all time? If you haven't heard of some of our guys, or if you don't know earth I'd have Earl Boykins and Anthony Mason in mind. Tell me about it. That's okay. Your list is not going to be wrong because it's your list. So for Talmadge Rodger Varnado III, I'm Jared Johnson.
Time out. Wait. There's someone in this room right now that's very discouraged that neither one of us had Larry Bird on their list.
That is very true.
Okay, go ahead.
That is very true. So Chris Black, tell us in person and in the comments how despicable it is that neither one of us had Larry Bird on our list. I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. I hope y'all have a great week. Thanks for stopping by, and hope I see you again real soon.
Can you put two